So I have a question to read from Shauna. Have you seen the trucks from Tajikistan coming for supposedly aid, but most likely being weapons?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know what's happening there unless, but because Saeed Qasim quote tweeted that and said that these are weapons. I mean, that's a Saeed Qasim is somebody I respect, and I don't think he says things that are based on credible information. I'm actually surprised that Tajikistan is would do that because I have a somewhat of a positive view on Tajikistan, so I don't know what's happening here. I'm not very informed about the details, like what the hell is happening there and why they're doing this. Maybe Jeffrey, can you tell us what's happening there a little bit? Yes.
I mean, so those countries are, without saying anything definitive, the countries we're talking about are weakened states and they don't have control over their borders. So insecurity flows can flow in and out of different states and borders independent of what the, government that resides in that country's knowledge or, permission. Who says that Iranian people will actually be unarmed? There's people working that almost assuredly. It also, the bad guys do that too, right? So Putin and Xi and Islamic fundamentalists will also take advantage of porous borders to try and flood in their version of track two material support. So his concern regarding the trucks and not knowing what it's on there, particularly if it's an active combat zone and all the rest of it, that guy's concern is not invalid. I mean, that's a very valid concern. Can I give you any definitive statement as to what this specific truck at this specific day, at this specific time, crossed at this specific point is carrying? Even if I knew that, I wouldn't say it. Right now, I haven't looked at it. I'm just giving you my ballpark assessment based on just how insecurity flows traditionally take advantage of.
Got it.
Can I talk about the infrastructure real
But
quick? Because you mentioned that. And
no, before we do that, let's stay on this topic, and
yeah.
then and because I want to make sure that we do one topic at a time. This is Saeed Qasim Najad. For people who don't know, this guy is the main advisor of Princess of Pahlavi, and
Yeah.
this is the guy who I'm saying this for others. This is the guy who is in charge of gathering and creating all the team behind Iran Prosperity Project and the emergency booklet that for their transitional period. So this guy is a big. He's basically the number one guy of Princess of Pahlavi. And by the way, bragging, he follows me, and I interviewed him. So this is what he's saying. But there's this video. It says کمک‌های بشردوستانه به مردم ایران. So humanitarian help for the Iranian people is basically these are trucks coming from Tajikistan apparently to Iran. And then Saeed Qasim Nejad is posting Tajikistan is most likely sending weapons to Iran, basically to for the IRGC. The regime has a drone factory in Tajikistan. Babak Zanjani, the IRGC financier, is rumored to be behind this. So this is the context for all of this. Again, I wouldn't know if I would believe this or not, but because Saeed Qasim Nejad is saying that, I take it a lot more seriously.
So it's not just a person. He also works for the Foundation of Defense of Democracies. It's very much a aggressive neoconservative think tank, without naming names. In any case, so not an unserious entity that directly deals with these kinds of issues. The point still stands that adversaries are going to take advantage of weakened states and porous borders to try and strategically disperse. That's the balloon effect or competitive adaptation, right? Because right now we're just obliterating everything that's IRGC, besiege related, military related in Iran. Like we deleted their whole military, right? I mean, they're like besiege headquarters have been blown up, IRGC headquarters are getting blown up. Douchebags hiding on the side of the road that you and Goldie showed that was near a tent trying to pretend to be a toothless pickle eating hobo got blown up. Like, so they're dispersing and going to places that are outside of that. Balloon effect means I put pressure on this part of the balloon, the air goes to another part of the balloon. Defined in this case as maybe IRGC douche canoes then going across the border to Tajikistan because there's a porous border and lack of, ability to control everything, to then strategically disperse, say, drone production, then feed that back in to try and assist, the Mullah regime. We indeed, good guys did that in assistance to Ukraine. So, I mean, both sides do that. That's a very common strategy. And it's not without any merit that there's a possibility that that's going on. Again, I haven't looked at that specific issue, so I won't make a definitive statement on that issue. I will say, though, just generally, that is a very possible, that's a possibility, and the concern is valid.
Let's see. All right.
Can I go
Who's
back to
on
the
the list?
infrastructure bit?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you're on the list. So let's go through your comment about the infrastructure.
But you're right about it. There's President Trump actually made a comment to this today. We don't want to strike, like, the issue is not striking, is not denying, he doesn't want to deny Iranian people the means to rebuild their country. He's trying to deny the Mullah regime, you know, resources. So the challenge isn't whether or not you can hit the oil sector, it's how do you do it in a way that pressures the regime without punishing the population and or destabilizing Iran, regional or global economy. That's a much narrower needle to thread. So from an operational perspective, it centers on some key strategic concepts, right? There's the inherent tension between Iran's oil sector funds the regime. That said, it also underpins civilian livelihoods and long term national recovery. So the strategy is very much selective disruption versus total destruction. It goes into three buckets, right? The short term pressure, and this is actually where they're picking their target sets, right? You actually talked about, well, we took out certain things on that island, but we're not hitting the pipelines because that takes many years to build, and we don't want to destroy that infrastructure. We want to leave it for the Iranian people once their country is liberated. Like he said that. Right? He wants to make sure that Iranians have the wherewithal to rebuild their country. So what's the disruption? We're focusing on interrupting export flows, not destroying the entire system. So the effects are immediate drop in regime cash, increased internal pressure on the leadership, whatever the hell is left at this moment, which doesn't seem to be much, to think of terms as bottlenecks rather than foundations, and having infrastructure preservation for the long term. Essentially, there's two messages that are being sent coterminously in the picking of those targets. To the Mullah regime that's left, it's saying that their power depends on oil revenue. We understand that, and that revenue is not beyond reach. We will indeed disrupt that quickly and decisively so that they cannot continue to destabilize things. The message is also sent coterminously to brave Iranian protesters and resistance. This is not about you. There is no interest in destroying your beloved country or your infrastructure or your future. Any action is going to be narrowly focused on limiting the regime's ability to fund conflict and doing everything we can that is possible to avoid harm for the Iranian people's future. And that's the distinction that's being made regarding the targets that are selected.
Okay, Jewish Samantha.
Shalom. Yeah, I asked you the other day about like if someone was a Muslim living in the West who like wanted to stay a Muslim, but was also a Zionist and also against like all the current Islamic regimes, what would be the harm in them like basically speaking out against those regimes as a Muslim? I kind of want to flip it and ask like, would there be any benefit to them doing that? And then again, like same question with communists.
Would there be any benefits in somebody being a Muslim and being a Zionist?
Well, as opposed to like someone who's not a Muslim doing it, is what I mean.
I guess, I mean, okay, so yesterday we talked about the fact that good Muslims who have otherwise good views, the costs associated with them, even though they're good people and we appreciate them, they're unknowingly supporting Islam because their existence is the best defense of Islam, even though Islam is the shadiest of all ideas out there. The fact that we have so many good Muslims make people think that maybe Islam is a good religion because there are good Muslims out there. So they're providing unknowingly they're protecting the worst ideas out there in the world, even though they're good people. So you're saying, is there any benefit to it? I guess, like, to be honest, yeah, there's also benefits associated with that, because if we want to like, maybe they will have more of an influence among Muslims when it comes to at least convincing them of some ideas, like maybe among some people who are Muslim, them hearing some of these ideas from a fellow Muslim would be more convincing than hearing it from somebody like me. I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm not gonna paint like a black and white picture. that might be a benefit. That could be a benefit, right?
And then like same question with communism.
Yeah,
And
same thing with communism. I guess, like, given that how many communists around the world have the, supporting the shittiest of all movements out there, anti-Zionism, anti-Western, pro-terrorist movements. I guess if somebody, again, I think, like, if somebody being a communist, the cost associated with that is that they're going to vote for economic policies that is going to keep their country poor or make it less prosperous. So that's the cost associated with that, even though they have good views, like if they're pro-Israel, if they're anti-CCP, anti-Putin, anti-terrorist groups, otherwise. But if they're communist, the cost associated with that is that because they don't understand how the economy works, they're going to vote for policies that's going to make our societies less prosperous. But I guess the positive side of that is that because they identify as a communist, maybe they could convince some other communists that, being anti-Israel or being pro-Hamas is like a shitty position to have. Maybe identifying as a communist will give them more influence, maybe. So yeah, there's positive and negative, I guess. Yeah, you're welcome. That's a good point, by the way, Samantha. Like, the positive side of it. But on average, I think it's better for people to have good, correct views. Like, I think we could all agree that on average, people having the correct views, whatever the cost benefit for each side is, more people believing in the right things is probably better for themselves as individuals and for society as a whole. So I think the net effect is in the negative. I'd rather people believe in the right things and not in the wrong things. I think the net result of that is more positive. So having some people have some wrong views, maybe you could think of some benefits associated with that, but the priority should always be more people having the correct views.